Hey, shalom, shalom, most high in Christ bless. Welcome to another In the Classroom. I'm Captain Zakar. Today's class is going to be called Matthew 18 for the spiritually carnal. All right, Matthew 18 for the spiritually carnal. It was either going to be that title or Matthew 18 for the old man in us. Either one. All right, take your pick. All right, let's get Romans 15 and 4. Let's start out with that.
Romans chapter 15, verse 4.
Uh-huh.
For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope.
Read it again.
For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning.
Now, we have to relearn. That's the thing. We have to humble ourselves when we come into this truth and understand that we have to relearn history. And we have to relearn how to live according to God. We have to relearn how to live as that righteous nation that God intended for us to be upon the earth, representing him. Because we lost those things. Give me that in Ecclesiastes 7 and verse 29. That's what these things is written for, so we can relearn how to please God after fallen. Ecclesiastes 7:29.
Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 29. Lo, this only have I found, that God hath made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions.
So Solomon's letting us know that when God made us, he made us upright. He made us in his image, right? But there was a grain of evil seed in there that we were supposed to deny that thing, so it would never come to fruition. But when God made us, he made our forefather, he made him upright without sin. Eve without sin made that, and that man that God's talking about is ultimately the Israelites. Give me that in Sirach chapter 24. And let's read verse 1, because I mentioned Adam, but ultimately, when God said he was making man upright, he was referring to the Israelites that would later come on the earth. 24, verse 1.
Ecclesiasticus of the book of Sirach, chapter 24 and verse 1. Wisdom shall praise herself, and shall glory in the midst of her people.
Wisdom shall praise herself and glory in the midst of her people. So now we got the context of what we're about to read about. Wisdom, right? Jump up to verse 11.
Verse 11. Likewise, in the beloved city, he gave me rest, and in Jerusalem was my power. And I took root in an honorable people, even in the portion of the Lord's inheritance.
And I took root in an honorable people. That another word to replace honorable for is upright. God said that he put wisdom in and gave it power in Jerusalem, and wisdom was to dwell in an honorable and upright people. Not just Adam, but a people. So when God created man upright, that man he was talking about to live upright and honorable was the Israelites upon the earth, the princes and princesses of God that was supposed to show forth what? His praise. Let's get this. Let's get that in Proverbs chapter 28 and verse 6. Now, the way you carry yourself ain't based on whether you got wealth, whether you're poor, whether you're tall, whether you're short. Wisdom ain't worried about that. Proverbs chapter 28 and verse 6.
Proverbs chapter 28 and verse 6. Better is the poor that walketh in his uprightness.
Better is the poor that walketh in his uprightness, because we see that many times today that those with wealth, they don't walk in uprightness. They don't walk in an honorable manner. They degrade themselves to get that wealth. Read that again.
Better is the poor that walketh in his uprightness than he that is perverse in his ways. Though he be rich.
Though he what?
Though he be rich.
Though he be rich. Many people upon the earth, they use their wealth to think down or think less of people that have not reached their status of in society when it comes to money. God said he ain't worried about that. That means nothing to him. That wisdom and that honor is supposed to be in us all. Now read that again.
Proverbs chapter 28, verse 6. Better is the poor that walketh in his uprightness.
In his integrity, in his honor. Read.
Than he that is perverse in his ways, though he be rich.
Though he be rich. Give me Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 4.
Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 4.
Yeah, read that.
Riches profit not in the day of wrath.
Read that again.
Riches profit not in the day of wrath.
Uh-huh.
But righteousness delivereth from death.
Now, righteousness in the context of what we talking about with this class, Matthew 18 for the spiritually carnal would be what? How you deal one with another. And that's a major part of our salvation as a people that we overlook. We tend to overlook that. We all want to, obey the commandments. I love God. Keep Passover. But we tend to look over the righteousness that delivers us from death. And a major part of that is how we deal one with another in the flesh. Get that in Matthew 23. Let's prove that. Matthew 22 and verse 34.
Matthew chapter 22 and verse 34.
Remember what I said? A major part of that righteousness that delivers us from death is how we deal with one another. Let's read that.
But when the Pharisees had heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence, they were gathered together. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him and saying. So
this is a lawyer. This is somebody that knew the law, that had copied out the law, a scribe. He studied this thing, right? Read.
Master, which is the great commandment in the law?
So he's tested his wisdom. Because he's a young man. Christ is a young man. He's between 30, 33 years old. He's young in the eyes of these masters of the law, these elders, these Pharisees, these Sadducees that he's putting to silence. So one is testing him. We want to see where his wisdom is. Read.
Jesus said unto him, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it.
Now let's get that where he got that from, because a lot of people don't know. And we've been running into this a lot with people that we meet on the street. So meet in Clubhouse, anywhere we talk to people. They don't know that Christ is actually just quoting Old Testament scriptures on another level of the wisdom that God has given him. Matthew chapter 6, I believe. Deuteronomy chapter 6, I believe it is. And I think it's verse 4 or 5. Deuteronomy 6, verse 4 and 5. Go ahead, read those.
Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 4. Hear, O Israel.
Hear, O Israel. Go ahead.
The Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul and with all thy might.
There you go. See, and this is what confuses Christianity so much, is that Christ is in Jerusalem speaking to Israelites. He doesn't have to keep saying over and over again, hear, O Israel, love the Lord thy God with all thy command. He doesn't have to say it over and over again. That's just like me and my brother or my sister, cousin having a conversation, and we say, hey, you know mama gonna get you. We don't have to say her name in order for both of us to understand who that person is, what we are talking about. That's all Christ is doing in the New Testament. So he got that, loving God, the greatest commandment, from the law of Moses, Deuteronomy chapter 6. Now let's go back to Matthew chapter 22 and let's read verse 39 now.
Matthew chapter 22, verse 39. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
Remember, we just came from Proverbs talking about righteousness. Riches don't profit you in the day of wrath. Righteousness delivereth from death. And a major part of our righteousness is what? It says here, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. It's a major part. It's so major. Read the next verse. Verse 40.
On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets.
What does that mean? The whole Bible is about loving God and loving your neighbor. The prophets are talking about loving God and loving your neighbor. Love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. No matter how they put it, it ultimately ended up to loving God. When they talk about thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, no matter how they phrased it, it all led back to thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Now, I want you to get it in the book of Mark. Let's get in the book of Mark, because in Deuteronomy, it actually tells you the context of who those 2 commandments is actually for, but it even said it in the New Testament in case you didn't read the law of Moses. Christ made sure he backed it up. Mark chapter 12 and 28. Let's get 28. Start there.
Mark chapter 12 and verse 28. And one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together, and perceiving that he had answered them well.
It's the same account. Read.
Asked him, which is the first commandment of all?
Which is the first commandment of all? Again, go ahead.
And Jesus answered him, the first of all the commandments is, hear, O Israel.
Now Christ quotes it verbatim of what is written in the law of Moses, in the book of Deuteronomy, in the book of Leviticus. Hear, O Israel. Read.
The Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment. And the second is like, namely this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. But he mentioned in context who he's talking to. The Israelites are to love their neighbors as they love their self. And their neighbors is not the person that lives on the same street corner as you. Get that in Leviticus. We got to go to make sure we cross all our T's and dot all our I's for those that are new to applying Matthew 18. Read that Leviticus 19.
Leviticus chapter 19, verse 17. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart.
We're going to come back to the scripture too. Go ahead.
Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor, and not suffer sin upon him.
And we hear the word neighbor. Now God is going to explain who our neighbor is. Read.
Thou shalt not avenge nor bear grudge against the children of thy people.
Your neighbor is your people. Those that you live in the projects with, in the hoods with, that look like you, that talk like you, that got the same experiences as you, that grew up in the same type of way of you. That's your neighbor. That's your brother. That's who you are to love like you love yourself. Now go back to Mark chapter 12, and I want you to read verse 31 again.
Mark chapter 12, verse 31. And the second is like, namely this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. We just read it, the children of Israel, right? Go ahead.
There is none other commandment greater than these.
Read that part again.
There is none other commandment greater than these.
Righteousness. There's no greater righteousness than loving your neighbor as you love yourself. Loving God with all your heart, with all your soul. But what happens with us is that we tend to focus on the first one, and we lightly esteem the second part of it. But we'll get to that in a second. But why is loving God so important? Verse 26.
Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26.
26 and 27. Go ahead.
And God said, let us make man in our image.
Now that man, as we've said before, that man was always in God's mind. It was always talking about the Israelite man. Let's get the proof of that. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Let's finish it out.
And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image.
Created man in his own image. Go ahead.
In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them.
There you go. So it says, let us create man in our own image. Now give me that in 2nd Esdras chapter 6. And let's read verse 54. Let's show you that when God created Adam in the beginning, that man that he had in his mind of being in his image was his people, the Israelites. Read that.
2nd Esdras chapter 6, verse 54. And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures. Of him come we all.
Of him come we all. All come from there. All mankind. Go ahead.
And the people who also thou hast chosen.
Thou hast what?
And the people also whom thou hast chosen.
So the man that God actually caring about carrying on his image in the earth was the people that he ended up choosing, the Israelites. It wasn't anybody else. The proof of that is when you keep reading. Keep reading.
Verse 55.
Yeah.
All this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sake.
So when he was making the world in the 7 days, it was made for the Israelite people. Read.
As for the other people, which also come of Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing.
That they are nothing but what?
But be like unto spittle.
But be like unto spittle. So this is how we can reform our thoughts and relearn how important it is to love thy neighbor as thyself. Because when God created Adam in the beginning, he had in mind the Israelite people. When he said, let us make man in our image, he wasn't worried about no other nation. They was spittle to him. They was nothing. What does it say? They are nothing. They be like unto spittle. Keep reading.
Thou hast said that they are nothing, but be like unto spittle, and has likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel.
There you go. That's why he was able to kill everybody. Hey, I'm going to drown everybody. Noah, you get your wife and your kids and them get in the boat. Everybody else is dead. They ain't nothing but a drop anyway to fall from a vessel. I'll start over with you. It's nothing to me. The only people that God cared about being in his image, carrying on his name in the earth, was eventually going to be the Israelites, which came through Noah and came through Shem. And we read about that in the history. Let's get some more on that. Isaiah 43, verse 21. We're dealing with why is it so important to love God, though, right now as a people? Because we tend to focus on that. Isaiah 43, verse 21.
Isaiah chapter 43, verse 21.
Yeah.
This people have I formed for myself.
Now, this backs up 2nd Ezra 6. This backs up Genesis chapter 1. Read that again.
This people have I formed for myself.
This people I formed for myself. Read.
They shall show forth my praise.
They shall show forth God's praise. That's why it's so important for us to love God, because we're supposed to show the love of God upon the earth, dealing one with another, and how to love God. We have been given that assignment as a people. No one else. Everybody else is like a drop from a bucket. He cares nothing about them. When he formed Adam, he was thinking about the Israelites. Let's get some more. Go back a few chapters. Give me that Isaiah 41, and let's read verse 8 and 9. So like I said, when God formed Adam, it was for the Israelites to represent him. Let's back it up with another precept. Go ahead.
Isaiah chapter 41, verse 8. But thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend.
So when God was forming the Israelites, he came through Noah and on down to Abraham. God's friend is how he formed us. Keep reading.
Verse 9, thou whom I have taken from the ends of the earth and called thee from the chief men thereof and said unto thee, thou art my servant. I have chosen thee and not cast thee away.
Even from the beginning, we was chosen. Before we was in the flesh on the earth, when we was in the spiritual realm, we was chosen. We was chosen to show forth God's praise upon the earth. Give me those images that I gave y'all about our ancestors. Let's see. Let's get a visual of those days so we can wash this white history. Was it iconoclasm out of our mind that so much plagues us as a people? So this is a Russian icon of Adam and Eve in the garden. You see, they is brown. Go back, man. I ain't told you go to the next one yet. Come on, man. Stay with me. They is brown as all outdoors. Hell, they even got Satan is brown. Why? Everybody in the beginning was brown. They understood that Satan, or the serpent in Genesis, was just a metaphor, a similitude of a man. They understood that. But you see, the angels is brown. Adam over there talking to him, Adam being put to sleep. And then you see Eve talking to a man outside of her husband to do some things that her husband did not tell her. Go to the next one. So now this is them being kicked out of the garden. Now, I can't find the one where they got clothes on because they wasn't naked before this. They had on garments, royal garments. Adam had on a crown on his head because he was ruler of the earth. But after they was in sin and kicked out, they were spiritually naked. And we read that through in the scriptures. But you see the angels brown, Adam brown, Eve brown, light skin. They took some of her color off of her. I think it's one in a book where it shows a spread of them. Let's go to that next one. There's a spread of it right there. But it's a different image. But you see, they still brown. Adam, Eve, the angels, God up there talking to them. Brown. I think I got some more on that. I got any more images? And yes, what it is? The scripture says, I called thee from the chief man thereof. That started with Adam, who was ruler of the whole earth, God upon the earth. Let's go to them other images. That right there, the chief man thereof, that the Israelites were born out of, it eventually came to seeing, who is that? Solomon with the crown upon his head. And that prophet that is behind them is Isaiah. These are the chief men thereof that God's talking about, that he formed us to show forth his praise. I think it's another image. That's King David. We see this one a lot. It's King David in his royal garments with his crown upon his head, his ruddy skin, which is brown. I should have pulled that up, that definition of ruddy, what that meant. And that Bible in his hand, because all kings had to write out the Bible. They had to write that thing out when they sat on there. Is it or is it more on out of the one more? Okay. That is Samson fighting the lion, chief man thereof. This is who God formed us out of, the Israelites. Read that again back in Isaiah. Isaiah 41, verse 8 and 9.
Isaiah chapter 41 and verse 9?
41, verse 8 and 9.
41 and verse 8. But thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. Thou whom I have taken from the end of the earth and called thee from the chief men thereof.
We just saw a few images of the chief man. These the top men on earth. Ain't nobody more famous than our ancestors. None. Read.
And said unto thee, thou art my servant. I have chosen thee and not cast thee away.
Chosen us all the way from the time of Adam, and even before he said, let there be light, Israel was chosen. Now give me that Hosea chapter 4 and verse 7. Hosea 4, verse 7.
Hosea chapter 4 and verse 7. As they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore will I change their glory into shame.
That glory of being God's people is gone now. You saw Solomon with that crown upon his head, King David, Isaiah the prophet, 66 chapters in the book, in the Bible. You saw black images of Adam and Eve being we the first man, the first women, all that glory gone. For one reason, read it again. Verse 7.
Hosea chapter 4, verse 7. As they were increased, so they sinned against me.
All that glory gone because we continue to sin against God. All of it gone. Keep reading.
Therefore will I change their glory into shame.
Now jump back up to verse 1 and let's see what took part in us losing that glory. Verse 1.
Hosea chapter 4, verse 1. Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel. For the Lord has a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land.
We've gotten to a point now that many of us don't even know the 10 commandments. We give you the 3 off top. We know thou shalt not kill, steal, commit adultery, and after that, it's love thy neighbor. That started the 10 commandments. The knowledge of God is gone. And when the knowledge of God left, mercy left, truth left. And then what came in? Verse 2.
Verse 2, by swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out and blood touches blood.
A part of losing that glory is the way we dealt with each other. We lost that glory that we had amongst the nations, the glory that God created us with, and we also lost how we dealt one with another. When the knowledge of God is gone out of the land, then comes in swearing, lying, killing, stealing, committing adultery, and blood touching blood. We begin to deal with our neighbors like enemies, and we still do it to this day. Give me that in Zechariah chapter 7. Zechariah chapter 7, and I want you to read verse 8. So when the knowledge of God left, we began to deal with each other as enemies, not as neighbors. That's why it ain't no neighborhood no more. It's just the hood, because we've become enemies without the knowledge of God. Zechariah chapter 7, and read verse 8 on down.
Zechariah chapter 7, verse 8. And the word of the Lord came unto Zechariah, saying, thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, execute true judgment, and show mercy and compassions, every man to his brother.
Gone. That went out the window. As soon as the knowledge of God left us, that was the first thing that was gone. Loving thy neighbor as thyself, gone. And the carnal man took over. The spiritual man, dormant, carnal man in full control, cruise control, going not even the speed limit, 90 down the highway, full of stealing, robbing, killing, committing adultery. Read it again, verse 9.
Verse 9, thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, execute true judgment and show mercy and compassions, every man to his brother.
Every man to his brother. He's not even your brother no more. What do these kids say about him now? He's my op. Don't even see him as a brother. Now, when we was growing up, even before us, around the 60s and 70s, they referred to each other as how? Brother. What's going on, brother? Hey, brother. I remember going to places with my father, walking around in the hood, going to the corner store. You see people. Hey, what's going on, brother? And he respond back, I can't call it. That's an old school term. You Judah, you might know it. I don't know. Anybody else heard of that around here? Judah? Okay. Is Judite? One Judite? Okay. Send me in over at 2. Okay, got that Judah. We say, hey, what's going on, brother? I can't call it. That's how we talk to each other. No more. They straight ops. We don't even speak to one another anymore. We don't have mercy or compassion upon every man's brother. Verse 10.
Verse 10, and oppress not the widow, nor the fatherless, the stranger, nor the poor, and let none of you imagine evil against his brother in your heart.
That's what we had. That's where we are today. We imagine evil against one another. We thought evil one of another in ancient times, and we ain't changed as a people. We still thinking evil one of another. We stopped our ears from hearing the knowledge of God that was calling out to us. And it's a specific knowledge. Keep reading verse 11 on down.
Verse 11, but they refused to hearken and pulled away the shoulder.
They turned their backs.
And stopped their ears.
They prophets talk to them, they stop their ears. Hey, man, you need to love your brother, man. Don't do it to your brother. I ain't trying to hear that. This nigga's my op. Go ahead.
That they should not hear.
Uh-huh.
Yea, they made their hearts as an adamant stone, lest they should hear the law.
We stopped our ears from hearing the law, the knowledge of God. And then the swearing and the lying and the stealing. And even if you don't get to that point of doing those actions towards your brother, what inhabited your spirit? The imagining evil against your brother. That's what take place. You might not be a violent person because you fear the white man. You fear going to jail. Oh, I can't do no prison time. I ain't doing that. No, it ain't that bad. But you foster evil thoughts against your brother, which in turn comes out in your actions and in your speech. And you can't hide it. Read that again, verse 12.
Yea, they made their hearts as an adamant stone, lest they should hear the law and the word which the Lord of hosts has sent in his spirit by the former prophets. Therefore came a great wrath from the Lord of hosts.
Great wrath is what? oppression. Pull up images that I sent y'all. Great wrath is slavery. Great wrath is oppression. Great wrath is having Esau's last name. That's your slavery right there. Chains on your neck, whipped back, toe up, so bad that it's scarred. And they took a picture of it, forever etched in history. 99% of the people in the world don't know that man on the left's name. All they know is his back. That's the wrath of God. Go to the next one. That's the wrath of God. Slavery with wooden trees made into chains around our neck. Leather ties in our bands in our noses to steer us like horses. Keep going. This is the wrath of God. Slavery, picking cotton with kids that's 2, 3 years old out there helping you. And then have white people mock you every February with videos of how soothing it is to pick cotton. Look at the faces of our ancestors. Oppressed, souls gone, walking dead. And then after the slavery, go to the oppression. Let's see what we got. Then the oppression hit. Have y'all noticed? Every time I see this, it stands out like a sore thumb. The only one that ain't walking with a sign telling the white man, I am a man, is Esau. He didn't have to tell him that. His spirit could not bear witness with the oppression. He's just there. He didn't walk around with that. He ain't grow up in slavery and oppression and redlining. He's just there to help a body. But he don't know what y'all experienced. He didn't know what our ancestors experienced. The wrath of God. He don't know what it feel like yet. Everybody, look, y'all. Pay attention to the people. Every single black man in that line. I want you to zoom in. Got a sign. Keep going. Zoom in. Keep going. Because look, you even get to the next white man. You can't even see his face, but he's right in front of the pole. I want you to circle around it. Keep going. No, next one. Right there. He don't have a sign, y'all. The white man has never felt the wrath of God. We have, because we turned our back on hearing the law of God. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Show mercy and compassion. Nah, we don't want to do that. The hell with that, Lord. I got to get this revenge. I got to imagine this evil in my mind against them. God said, I got wrath for you. White man ain't got one. You go right behind. Every black man got a sign. All right, let's just, is it more on that? Go ahead. Let me see the other one. More oppression. Look who's behind them, y'all. Them is Army Rangers. Whether they enlisted in the army or captured or moved off somewhere, them brothers' face look like what? Oppression. Look at their faces. Screaming oppression. That's the wrath of God. Is that it? Okay, now let's go back to the scripts. Give me that Leviticus chapter 19. I said we was going to go back to it. Let's go back to it now. Leviticus 19, verse 17, 18.
Leviticus chapter 19, verse 17.
Get that definition ready for me. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him.
Now, how do we hate our brother? The first step is you suffer sin. You allow him to go on in that sin. You allow your sister to remain in that sin. That's the first step of the hatred. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not avenge, nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people. But thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Lord.
The next step of showing hatred towards your people is what? Letting grudges fester inside of you. Letting them set up a root of bitterness inside of you. Letting it remain there to grow inside of you until it shows forth in your actions and it can't be hidden. Let's get that definition of grudge, because the swearing, the killing, the blood touching blood, That's not a major problem in Israelite congregations. Nope. Because we fear white man more than we do God. The problem we deal with most of the time is people bearing grudges, roots of bitterness grown in them, and they think they can hide it. It don't. You can't. It shows. Let's see that definition of a grudge. Let's read that.
Grudge, noun, a feeling of ill will or resentment.
A feeling of ill will or resentment. That's what we have amongst us as the people of God that are supposed to show forth his rage. And then when you're in the truth, that you can see that shows where you distance yourself. You don't talk to them, or you ain't got nothing to say to them. In the world, it ends up being blood touching blood and murder and no mercy. Give me the thesaurus on that same definition. Dictionary.com. Give me that in the thesaurus because it says it a different way. We pull definitions. I like to get the definition, thesaurus, and anything else. Go ahead. Where we at? So this is the thesaurus. That is synonyms. I don't need synonyms. I need the thesaurus. Do y'all know what that is? Oh, God bless your heart. Yeah. Go to dictionary.com. Pull up the definition, and along the tab somewhere, you'll see thesaurus. It's another way of, there you go. Click on it. All right, let's scroll down. I don't need synonyms. Scroll past it. Go to the definition. Keep going. Where are we at? Oh, this is different from the phone. All right, let me see. Keep going down. Let's see if there's anything else on it. There we go. Keep going. I don't see it. Which one is there? Oh, okay. All right, man. Go to go to Miriam's. Go to Miriam's, because on the phone it's a little different. Go ahead. Okay, let me see. They don't have it either. Okay. All right. Let me go to it. Let me go to it on my phone. And I'm going to send y'all a picture of it. Okay, well, maybe that's it. Maybe it is what I wanted. Okay, go back to it. That was right. Okay, go back to it. The source of the dictionary. Go back to it. Let's pull it up. So the definition of it was a feeling of ill will or resentment, right? So the synonyms of it on thesaurus.com. Okay, that's what I wanted. Read those synonyms of it.
Grudge. Animosity.
Animosity. Can we click on animosity to see what it says, what the definition of that is? Let's read that. Scroll down. Is that it? Noun, as in a feeling of strong dislike. Now, stay there. Scroll down. Let's see. It's only going to give us synonyms for it. Okay, go to dictionary.com on it. No, just click dictionary.com. It should pop up. Does it pop up? Nope. Okay. All right, go back. Go back to it. Oh, yeah, you just had to click back the arrow back over. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Animosity, as in feeling of strong dislike.
Okay, now go back where we just was to synonyms for grudge. Pull it up. There we go. Okay, go ahead.
Animosity, animus, antipathy.
Antipathy.
Bad blood.
What is it?
Bad blood.
Bad blood. Read.
Bitterness.
Bitterness.
Enmity.
Uh-huh.
Grievance. Hard feelings.
Hard feelings.
Hate.
It ain't just wrecked. They didn't put it there once. They put it there twice. A grudge is hate. Go ahead.
Hate. Hatred. Ill will.
Uh-huh.
Injustice. Malice. Rancor. Resentment.
That's what happens with us. We bear grudges until it turns into hate, animosity. hard feelings, grievance that you just can't get over. Give me that. Let's go to the scripts. Go back to the scripts. Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 1. But now this is the thing you got to understand. The grudges don't come from, hey man, you need to tie your shoe. Oh, hey, you got something on your face right here. You don't get it for, oh, hey, you dropped $1. Them grudges don't come from those things. Grudges come from this. Proverbs 29 and 1.
Proverbs chapter 29, verse 1. He that being often reproved hardeneth his neck.
That's where grudges come from. Grudges come from being corrected. That's where the grudge begins. And then what happens when you are often corrected, which is reproved, then comes the hatred. Then comes the hate. Read that from the top again.
Proverbs chapter 29, verse 1. He that being often reproved hardeneth his neck shall suddenly be destroyed, and that without remedy.
Now, and if before it gets to the level of hate, you know why you reject the correction that you need is because you're full of pride. The pride is, you can't tell me, who are you to tell me that? You can't tell me, no, what it is. And give me that in John chapter 3. There's a feeling of pride that you believe you know something, that you're above reproving. John chapter 3, read verse 1 through 3.
John chapter 3, verse 1. There was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. The same came to Jesus by night and said unto him, Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher come from God. For no man can do these miracles that thou doest, except God be with him. Jesus answered and said unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God.
So what is Christ telling us? All of us, when you repent, you are a baby. You're a babe. And what are babes in need of? Proverbs 22, verse 15. Proverbs 22, verse 15. What are babes in need of? What are the attributes of a babe? Read that.
Proverbs chapter 22, verse 15. Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child.
Foolishness means what? All the ways of the world that you have learned is inside of you. Even when you first repent as a newborn babe, foolishness, the ways of the world, the sins of the world are still in you. Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. So what are they in need of? Read.
But the rod of correction shall drive it far from him.
You're in need of correction when you're a newborn babe. You're in need of that because foolishness is in you, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, whether you want to hide it or seek counsel for it. Foolishness is in you, and the only thing that can drive it from you is correction. Give me that in Sirach 42. Sirach chapter 42, I want you to read 1 through 5. But what does the spiritually carnal in their mind think? You can't tell me nothing. I am such and such age. I'm such and such of status. I'm such and such of wealth. I don't need you to tell me what to do. Who are you? That's the spiritually carnal mind that thinks those ways. Read on. Sirach 42, 1 through 3.
Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, chapter 42, verse 1.
1 through 5. Go ahead.
Of these things be not thou ashamed, and accept no person to sin thereby. Of the law of the Most High and his covenant, and of judgment to justify the ungodly. Of reckoning with thy partners and travelers, or of the gift of the heritage of friends, of exactness of balance and weights, or of getting much or little.
Here's the point. Verse 5, be thou not ashamed of what?
and of merchants in different selling, of much correction of children.
God said you're not supposed to be ashamed when you're receiving much correction as a newborn babe, a child in the truth. You're not supposed to be ashamed of those things. You're supposed to welcome it because foolishness is in you. It's there. You're trying to get right. You need somebody to tell you how to be spiritual, godly, how to dress, how to talk, how to conduct yourself, how to be on time. You need somebody to tell you, hey, we've got this meeting here. We've got a meeting over here. We've got to fill this out. We've got to sign up for this. You got to be here at this time. You got to wear this. You got to look like this. You can't look like that. You can't wear that. You need somebody to do that because you're a child. It's the same thing you do with your children when they first born. You don't let them, they pop out and they are literally a few hours old. And you go in there and see them laying in the baby thing. Hey, I just want to tell you, figure it out for yourself. You don't do that. You would say that's a bad parent. You see kids going running around. Nobody going to tell this kid to stop running. Nobody going to say nothing to this child. He's out here got a gun on his waist out here. But nobody going to tell him nothing different. Dude out here calling people all kind of names. She out here doing all kind of stuff. Ain't nobody gonna tell them that's wrong. You would call that person, if they didn't correct them, a bad parent, a bad supervisor, a bad overseer. You would call them terrible at the job they do. So you can't be afraid or ashamed of receiving much correction because we all spiritual babes. New to this, trying to get it right. Give me that in 1 Peter 2:2 now. 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 2.
1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 2. As newborn babes, desire the sincere milk of the word, that ye may grow thereby.
You're a newborn babe. You can't forget that. The carnal, the fleshly old man in you wants you to forget that you're now a spiritual creature and act and walk in the flesh and don't let nobody tell you nothing. You got ground. You stand on business. The old man wants you to say that to us so you can so he can remove you from all the spiritual help that you need and end up ultimately destroying you. That's what the spiritual man wants you to forget. You're a newborn babe and that you're full of what? Verse 1.
Verse 1, wherefore, laying aside all malice.
You're full of malice. Go ahead.
And all guile.
You're full of guile.
And
hypocrisies.
And envies. And all evil speakings.
Man, you just came from gossiping out there in the world. The old man, the carnal man wants you to forget those things. Forget you're a newborn babe in need of much correction. Mark chapter 7. Mark chapter 7, and I want you to read verse 21 through 23.
Mark chapter 7, verse 21. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts.
How much more when you was walking in the flesh in the world and you was without God? How much more was we doing that with evil thoughts? They still plague us now for some of us that have been born again for a little while, and they still plague us every single day now. How much more when you didn't have no knowledge of God? We read what happened. Your blood was touching blood, swearing, lying, no mercy. Keep reading.
Adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile the man.
All these things are in every single one of us as children, because what did we read in Proverbs? Foolishness. This is the foolishness that is in us. In the eyes of God, the things we do as man is foolishness. It's in all of us, and we need to be guided, corrected on how to overcome each and every one of these things, because we may have 2 or 3 of them that's in us, 4 or 5 of them in us, 6 or 7 in us, 10 to 11 in us. We might have more than one, and you need somebody to guide you in those things to help you reform your ways. Now, give me that in Job chapter 32. Job chapter 32, and I want you to read verse 4. Now, here's what happens with many of the carnal that get offended. Job 32, verse 4.
Job chapter 32, verse 4. Now Elihu had waited till Job had spoken, because they were elder than he.
They were elder. He had some respect as a young man. He had respect. They were elder than he. Go ahead.
When Elihu saw that there was no answer in the mouth of these three men, then his wrath was kindled.
Read.
And Elihu the son of Barachel, the Buzite, answered and said, I am young.
I am young. Go ahead.
And ye are very old.
You're much older than me in the flesh. I'm a young man. Y'all older than me in the flesh. Read.
Wherefore I was afraid, and durst not show you mine opinion. I said, they should speak.
The honor should always go to the aged man. It should always go to them. Read.
And multitude of years should teach wisdom.
They should be teaching me, is what he's saying. Go ahead.
But there is a spirit in man. And the inspiration of the Almighty giveth them understanding.
Read.
Great men are not always wise.
Those aged men are not always wise. Read.
Neither do the aged understand judgment.
Read that again, verse 9.
Great men are not always wise.
They are not always spiritually wise. That great man is talking about the aged. Just because you are up in age carnally, it does not mean you are spiritually wise to God. Read on.
Neither do the aged understand judgment.
And what God will do when you are of age carnally, but you're not spiritually of age, God will humble you by giving a young man or a young sister the power to correct you. He'll humble you in that, making you realize the fact you're a newborn babe. Make you acknowledge that. Yeah, I don't know this. I don't know that. I need someone to correct me because foolishness is bound in me. I didn't see that. I needed that correction. God will humble an aged man physically by getting correction from a spiritual man that's younger than him. Is that it on verse 9? Okay, give me that in. Let's prove that. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 8. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 8. And this is why you can't be carnal, because you may be of age in the flesh, but you're a babe spiritually. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 8, verse 1.
Wisdom of Solomon chapter 8 and verse 1. Wisdom reaches from one end to another mightily, and sweetly does she order all things.
Now we know the context is wisdom. Now jump down to verse 7. Let's see what wisdom does. Read on.
Verse 7. And if a man love righteousness, her labors are virtues, for she teaches temperance and prudence.
She teaches temperance, prudence. Go ahead.
Justice and fortitude. Which are such things as men can have nothing more profitable in their life.
All the riches of the world, like it said in Proverbs, don't profit you. Wisdom is what we need to maintain our or to reach salvation. Wisdom is the main thing. Go ahead.
Verse 8. If a man desire much experience, she knoweth things of old.
So now wisdom will give you much experience. Okay, go ahead.
And conjectureth all right what is to come. She knoweth the subtleties of speeches, and can expound dark sentences. She foreseeth signs and wonders, and the events of reasons and times.
That's seasons and times. Seasons. Go ahead.
And the events of seasons and times.
Read on.
Therefore, I purpose to take her to me, to live with me, knowing that she would be a counselor of good things, and a comfort in cares and grief.
Read.
For her sake, I shall have estimation amongst the multitude, and honor with the elders.
And what?
And honor with the elders.
Wisdom will give you honor with the elders. Read.
Though I be young.
Though you be young. Wisdom will give young man that wisdom beyond the carnal age man. That's what wisdom does. That's why I said above in verse 8, if you desire much experience, you better take wisdom unto you, because it'll teach you things that you haven't actually learned yet, like temperance, prudence. Those things ain't associated with young man, temperance and prudence. But when wisdom enters into a young man, it gives them to you. It gives you those experiences. It puts you in those situations. And when you filter them through the scriptures, you're able to answer those things. Read that again in verse 10.
Verse 10, for her sake, I shall have estimation amongst the multitude and honor with the elders, though I be young.
Though I be young, wisdom will give you honor among the ancient in the flesh, though you be young. Here's some more proof of it. Psalms 119. Psalms 119, 97 to 100. Psalms 119, 97 down to 100.
Psalms chapter 119, verse 97. Oh, how I love thy law. It is my meditation all the day.
Now, that's the thing. That's how a young man that might have been called before you spiritually, though he be younger than you in the flesh, if he has meditated upon, if he has loved the law of God and he meditated upon that thing, he's applied it to his life, what God gives him. Read the next verse.
Thou, through thy commandments, hast made me wiser than mine enemies.
Through the law of God and applying it, it gives you wisdom. Right? We read that all over the Bible. Read on.
For they are ever with me. I have more understanding than all my teachers.
Now, I'm going to explain something too when we read this, as we read on in it. I have more understanding than all my teachers. Read on.
For thy testimonies are my meditation. I understand more than the ancients.
I understand more than the ancients. Read.
Because I keep thy precepts.
They will give a young man wisdom that he will understand more than the ancients that still are carnal. That's what happens. Wisdom will do that. The applying of God's laws. So it's not based upon your age of when you came into the world. No, God deals with the spirit. That will give you more understanding than those that may be older than you in the flesh. We just read it in Job. Let's go back to Job, just in case we forgot the thought of it. Job, it's 34, and I think it's verse 9, or 32, verse 9. Well, let's start at verse
6.
Yep, there you go, verse 6.
Job chapter 32, verse 6. And Elihu, the son of Barachel, the Buzite, answered and said, I am young, and ye are very old. Wherefore I was afraid, and durst not show you mine opinion.
Here it is, verse 7.
I said, days should speak, and multitude of years should teach wisdom.
An aged man should teach wisdom. The aged man should teach that. You older, you got gray hairs. You should know more than me. Read.
But there is a spirit in man, and the inspiration of the Almighty giveth them understanding.
When they apply the laws, go ahead.
Great men are not always wise, neither do the aged understand judgment.
Because they've been living in the flesh for a long time. So long, they got gray hairs upon their head. And pride comes in when a young man that's full of the wisdom of God is giving them correction. But according to the scriptures, go back to Psalms chapter 119, verse 99.
Psalms chapter 119, verse 99. I have more understanding than all my teachers.
That's not talking about the teachers that have applied the laws of God. Those captains don't know more than bishops and deacons and seagate. We don't know that. No, we have more understanding than all our teachers of the world that are older than us. We surpass them in understanding. Why? Because we love the law of God. It was our meditation. Read on.
I have more understanding than all my teachers, for thy testimonies are my meditation.
Read.
I understand more than the ancients, because I keep thy precepts.
There you go. That's not talking about the elders in the truth. That's talking about the carnal minds of the world that believe they can't be corrected. God says through his precepts, through his law, he'll give a young man more understanding than the ancients so that they could do what? put forth God's laws and correct judgment. Here's the proof of it. History of Susanna. Precept upon precept, these things make sense to the spiritual man. Precept upon precept. Now let's read that in Susanna, start at verse what? 45? Is that what we want? Yep. Let's see. Yep. 45. Go to 45.
History of Susanna, verse 45. Therefore, when she was led to be put to death, the Lord raised up the Holy Spirit of a young youth.
Of a what?
A young youth.
A young youth. Read.
Whose name was Daniel.
A young youth whose name was Daniel. Read on.
Who cried with a loud voice, I am clear from the blood of this woman. Then all the people turned them towards him and said, what mean these words that thou hast spoken? So he, standing in the midst of them, said, are you such fools, you sons of Israel, that without examination or knowledge of the truth, ye have condemned a daughter of Israel? Return again to the place of judgment, for they have borne false witness against her. Wherefore all the people turned again in haste, and the elders said unto him, come, sit down amongst us.
Do what?
Sit down amongst us.
Wisdom put Daniel where? Among the elders. To the point they said, come, sit down among us. Read.
And show it us. Seeing God has given thee the honor of an elder.
Oh, read that again from the top, verse 50.
Wherefore all the people turned again in haste, and the elders said unto him, come, sit down amongst us, and show it us. Seeing God has given thee the honor of an elder.
The honor of an elder. Through what? Through his precepts, through his laws, through his wisdom. It will give you the honor of an elder, an ancient man. Why? Because you know the laws of God. The wisdom of God is in you. Who will reject the wisdom of God? Give me that back in Proverbs. What happens when you reject that? Proverbs chapter 20, what I want? Pride. Destruction. What I want? Bear with me, y'all. Bear with me. 13:10. Let me see. Read that one. 16:18. Read Proverbs 13:10 first.
Proverbs chapter 13, verse 10.
No, read 16:18. Then come back to Proverbs 13:10.
Proverbs chapter 16, verse 18. Pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall.
Only a carnal man will reject the wisdom of God that's been put even in a youth to correct you because you're a newborn babe. Only pride will do that, and it ends up bringing what upon you? Read it again.
Pride goeth before destruction.
It goes before destruction. Now go back to Proverbs 13, verse 10.
Proverbs chapter 13, verse 10. Only by pride cometh contention.
That's why you will reject that wisdom. And now, when you reject that wisdom, although it be from a young man, because you was full of pride, now there's contention, and now what has to be applied? Matthew 18. Before we get that, give me that in John chapter 8. We're going to get an example of a young man that was full of the knowledge and wisdom of God. John chapter 8, verse 52 through 57.
John chapter 8, verse 52. Then said the Jews unto him, now we know that thou hast a devil. Abraham is dead, and the prophets. And thou sayest, if a man keep my sayings, he shall never taste of death.
Read on.
Art thou greater than our father Abraham, which is dead, and the prophets are dead? Whom makest thou thyself? Jesus answered, if I honor myself, my honor is nothing. It is my Father that honoreth me, of whom you say that he is your God.
Read.
Yet ye have not known him, but I know him. And if I should say I know him not, I shall be a liar like unto you. But I know him and keep his sayings.
Read.
Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad.
And was glad. Now look how the carnal man, the carnal woman responds to a spiritual man. Read.
Then said the Jews unto him, thou art not yet 50 years old.
Hold on, young man. Who you think you are telling us? Who you think you are correcting us? The Pharisees were carnal. They looked on the outside. They didn't look at the spirit, the wisdom that was dwelling in Jesus the Christ to lead them in the right way that they should go. They were full of pride and rejected it and was full of contention between Christ, the disciples, and the Pharisees all his life. Read that again, verse 57.
Verse 57. Then said the Jews unto him, thou art not yet 50 years old, and hast thou seen Abraham?
They automatically, hey man, who you think you are telling us? You young. You ain't even 50 yet. Stay in your place. You can't tell me nothing. But look what the spiritual man, how he responds. Read.
Jesus said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am.
God called me way before y'all was even on this earth or thought of it. I was here before God put his wisdom in me for you to help you out. Spiritually aged, full of wisdom, Jesus the Christ was. Now, give me that in Matthew chapter 18. So once contention now sets in place from pride, from the spiritually carnal man or woman, now Matthew 18 has to be applied. Let's read Matthew chapter 18. Let's get straight to it.
Matthew chapter 18, verse 1. At the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus called a little child unto him and set him in the midst of them. And he said, verily, I say unto you, except you be converted and become as little children.
Be reborn, unless you are like little children spiritually. When you're reborn, taking it in, being corrected, because foolishness is in you. Read.
Except you be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven.
If you're going to walk around here as nobody can tell me nothing because I am who I am, I got gray hairs here, I got money over there. If that is your thought process in this spiritual walk, Christ said you cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. You cannot. Read.
Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child.
Do what?
Humble himself as this little child.
And what does it mean to humble yourself? It means to humble to the word of God. The Matthew 18 or correction ain't meant to, ain't for personal reasons. Hey, I don't like the color you wear. Stop wearing it. No, I don't like the way you tie your shoes. I don't like the way you do your hair. No, Matthew or correction is not for personal reasons. Matthew 8 or correction is to make you spiritually better so that you can humble yourself as a little child so that you stay on the straight and narrow path. That's what correction is for. It's spiritual and it's through the laws of God, through the word of God. Read that again, verse 4.
Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven.
Now read on. Let's jump down to verse 6, I guess it is. Yeah.
Verse 6. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones.
No, let's get straight to the point. Verse 15.
Verse 15. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee.
Now there's contention. There's big contention because pride is in there. Someone's being prideful. Contention has taken place. If there's a trespass against thee, a sin committed against thee, go ahead.
Go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone.
Don't seek an audience immediately. That's the out of order according to God. It says between thee and him alone. Now give me that in Proverbs where Christ got this from. I think it's Proverbs chapter 25 and verse 8. Let's see. Bear with me. Let's see. Is it 25 and 8? No, it ain't 25 and 8.
9.
25 and 9. There we go.
Proverbs chapter 25, verse 9. Debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself.
Debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself. Go ahead.
And discover not a secret to another.
There you go. That's what Christ got, Matthew 18:4. He's expounding upon it because that's what Christ it was prophesied he would do. He would magnify the law. So when there's there's trespasses against your brother, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. Keep reading. Go back to Matthew 18, verse 15.
Matthew chapter 18, verse 15. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother.
The whole purpose of reconciling between another individual that's your neighbor is so that you can gain your brother back, not so you can tell him how you feel because you made me angry. That's not the point of it. And I'm going to tell you how I feel because you made me angry. And after this, you go your way, I go my way. That's not the purpose of going to your brother and sister alone. It is to actually gain them back. To gain means to restore, to make better. Not, no, just leave it where it is. No, that's a loss. That's not a gain. Gain your brother or your sister back. Give me that in Sirach 31, verse 15 real quick. We'll wrap it up here in a second. Sirach 31, verse 15.
Ecclesiasticus of the book of Sirach, chapter 31 and verse 15. Judge of thy neighbor by thyself, and be discreet in every point.
Just say it, read it again.
Judge of thy neighbor by thyself, and be discreet in every point.
In every point. All right, let's go back. Go back. Now let's read verse 16.
Matthew chapter 18, verse 16. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouth of two or three witnesses every word may be established.
Man, because you might not be spiritually in depth enough to convey yourself scripturally to the person of what happened. You might just be carnal. And now you need somebody to help you to get it across to that person so they can see them faults. Oh, man, they didn't say that. They didn't explain it that way. They a newborn babe. They didn't know. They was just mad. I gave some correction. This happened. And then it was spiraled out of control. Go get 2 or 3 more people so that person can maybe then see their faults. Oh, okay, I understand now you say it like that. Okay, yeah, you're right. And if they do on the flip side, no, I didn't do that. Well, okay, now we taking it to the next level because I brought 2 people. They said something and they still didn't see it. Read on now, read verse 17.
Verse 17, and if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church.
Now you take it to the leader. So it's a chain of command. First to them, then to 2 more. And now you take it to the leadership. Go ahead.
And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as an heathen man and a publican.
There you go. Now jump down to verse 21.
Verse 21. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Jesus said unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7.
70 times 7. Be merciful. Go ahead.
Therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants.
Now he's going to give a parable of forgiveness. Go ahead.
And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him, which owed him 10,000 talents. But for as much as he had not to pay, his Lord commanded him to be sold, and his wife, and children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. Then the Lord of that servant was moved with compassion and loosed him and forgave him the debt.
Now this is you. Put yourself in, okay, I was full of all these sins. I had many sins, and God had compassion with me and forgave me of all that debt and allowed me to come into this marvelous light. Go ahead.
But the same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants, which owed him 100 pence. And he laid hands on him, saying, Pay me that thou owest. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet and besought him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. And he would not, but went and cast him into prison till he should pay the debt.
Read on.
So when his fellow servants saw what was done, they were very sorry and came and told unto their Lord all that was done. Then his Lord, after that he had called him, said unto him, O thou wicked servant, I forgave thee all that debt, because thou desirest me.
Now, if you don't have mercy one for another in the eyes of Jesus the Christ, you're a wicked servant. Automatically, when mercy is extended to you, not first by your neighbor or your brother, it's first extended to you by God and Jesus the Christ himself. That's where mercy first came from. And if you can't extend that same mercy that Jesus the Christ gave you before you even came in contact with the person that may have offended you, Christ says you're a wicked servant. Read on.
Oh, thou wicked servant, I forgave thee all that debt because thou desirest me.
You love me. You love God with all your heart. You desired that of me. Read.
Shouldest not thou also had compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I had pity on thee?
Shouldn't you have applied the second greatest commandment? Love thy neighbor as you love yourself. You was good with the first one. You desired me. You sought me. You asked for forgiveness. You fasted. You prayed. I forgave you of those sins. You got the first commandment right, but you forgot the second one and you lightly esteemed it and didn't show mercy to your neighbor and love them like yourself. What's the judgment? Keep reading.
And his Lord was wroth.
And he was what?
Was wroth.
So you can't just focus on loving God and not loving your neighbor. Remember in the beginning of this class, I said what? Righteousness in the context of this class, which is loving your neighbor as yourself, is one of the greatest, one of the highest, one of the most important things that we tend to not focus on. Our salvation deals with loving God and loving our neighbor as ourselves just the same. Those two are the greatest commandments. Read that again.
And his Lord was wroth and delivered him to the tormentors till he should pay all that was due unto him. So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you, if you from your hearts forgive not everyone his brother their trespasses.
So if you have pride on you and it's turned into contention and now you have lost your brother, you've separated yourself from the body of Jesus the Christ, which no man should be able to do that. You got to examine yourself. Forgive your brother everyone is trespass, because he still has things he has to work on. She still have things she has to work on. And you have to gain each other back. And if there's no gaining of each other back and restoring it to where it once was, where you knew it was before that, it says what? Read verse 35 again.
So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you, if you from your hearts forgive not everyone his brother their trespasses.
There you go, because all of us imagine evil one towards another in our heart. Christ said, you better in your mind forgive your brother, and your actions better match it when you gain them back. All right. So that's been Matthew 18 for the spiritually carnal, or Matthew 18 for the old man in us. Whichever one feels better to you and it rolls off your tongue, you can call it whichever one you want to, but you better apply it before you shut yourself out of the kingdom of heaven and blot your name out of the book of life. Shalom.
Shalom, Israel. This is Bishop Nathaniel. I want you to know that you can view all our Sabbath classes live on IUIC TV. That's right, I said on IUIC TV. Download the app today. Shalom.
What is the nation?
Nation is men leading by example.